been on a bit of a nostalgia kick recently. Been watching my old favorite movies and TV shows, reminiscing on the good old days when I could come home from a long day of elementary school and play my silly little games on my silly little computer. One of those games, though, that I always just came back to was this game called Professor Layton in the Curious Village. I was very, very young when I first played this game, and if you don't know, it's a puzzle game. And very, very young me was not very, very good at the puzzles. I actually was very bad. But everything else about the game just encapsulated me. But as I've grown up, I've started to realize that this game that was so important to me and such a big part of my life wasn't actually as widely known as I thought it was. So I wanted to share this game with you. Today I will be talking to you about Professor Layton in the Curious Village. The Professor Layton series was created by Akihiro Hino and was developed by Level 5, and it was basically inspired by the works of Akira Tago in his mental gymnastics books. Most of the puzzles from that book were utilized in the game, but Tago actually created about 30 brand new puzzles specifically for it with the console in mind. The series boasts 9 games, an anime, a manga, and a movie, all with the goal of furthering the story of Professor Herschel Layton and his apprentice Luke. So what's so great about the story? Curious Village starts out pretty simple. We meet Luke and Layton and discover that they're on a journey to a town called St. Mystere. Layton was sent a letter from one Lady Dahlia asking him for help solving the mystery of the Golden Apple, which is something that has plagued their town for years and no one has been able to figure out. Luke and Layton will then go on a series of chases that'll lead you through the town and back. The main quest of the story may be the Golden Apple mystery, but it also loops in a lot of side quests that reveal other information about the game, build the atmosphere, and also set up a lot of hints towards the conclusion of the game, but then basically immediately draw your attention away from it, which makes for a really, really cool reveal by the end. So the ending of Curious Village, spoiler alert, just a warning, is probably one of my favorite video game endings ever. As a kid, I was obviously really dumb and didn't pick up on any of the hints or anything, but I still think as an adult that it's such a shocking twist and comes so out of nowhere if you haven't really been paying attention, but it's so cool. Luke and Layton discover that the Golden Apple is a man named Baron Reinhold's daughter. And Baron Reinhold is the one that kind of set up this Golden Apple mystery. He basically said whoever finds and protects the Golden Apple can get my treasure. But they also discover that not only that, but the Baron built an entire town to protect his daughter and filled it with residents made up of robots. Pretty much every character you meet in the game is a robot, save for a few, which shook me to my core as like a 7-year-old. I was so shocked. No other game since then has really kind of hit that same emotional pull that the ending of this game did. The design of the villagers that you meet doesn't really give it away either. They just kind of follow what will become the Layton series' trademark quirky style. No two characters really look alike unless they're absolutely intended to, and they all have really unique and recognizable features. According to Hino, Layton is partly inspired by Phoenix Wright of the Ace Attorney series. Hino assessed the good and bad parts of Phoenix Wright and came up with Herschel Layton. The character designs themselves were the works of Takuzo Nagano, who basically strived for the idea of recognizability by form and color palette, and he really wanted them to be recognizable at small sizes, which if you think about the consoles was really important. And this is noticeable with other characters across games. All of them sort of have their own color palette, their own recognizable form. Think of like Inspector Chimley, Von Paulo, Stash and Scarfin. If I'm saying it right, I don't think I ever will. And even Emmy and Flora. Emmy is in a later game, but Flora from this game, if you think about her, she has pretty much a very straightforward, elegant form, and a really simple, beautiful color palette that's recognizable. And particularly in Curious Village, I always kind of thought that Luke and Layton stood out from the residents of St. Mystere in that I thought they were more simple. And I always just kind of was confused. Why are these main characters so much more straightforward than all of these other side characters? I think partly, you know, the game wants you to remember all of the smaller characters, the ones you're not really going to see again in other games. But also, in my mind, once I realized what the twist was, it kind of made sense that then all of these literal robots would look different. They'd have more exaggerated features and they'd have more eccentric, I guess, styles and clothing and ways of talking as well. Some of the other human residents of St. Mystere, even the ones that have passed away, like the Baron, still kind of fall on the side of exaggerated. So I don't necessarily think that my little theory is a one-size-fits-all thing, but it is kind of cool to think about. Like, Luke and Layton, the humans, don't look anything like the robots. They're very, very different. One of the other things that I love about the design of this game is the music. When I think of a video game soundtrack that I like, I instantly just think of the Professor Layton series. The downside is that at times some of the music can get repetitive. If you're working on a puzzle and you're not doing very well at solving it, you're going to hear the same phrase of music over and over again. And it gets stressful. But I think the area music and the character songs are just still so good. They're really great, like, classical kind of pieces. And I think they also evoke a really, like, mysterious tone, which is what the game wants. It wants you to be curious and feel like you're going on this quest to solve this really big mystery. And I think the music really evokes that. I think it's great. Then there's gameplay. The gameplay overall is generally like pretty point and click. As you move through different areas, that's what you do. You point and go to the next area. You can also interact with the maps that you're in to get little things called hint coins that are very, very helpful when you get stuck on puzzles. But there is obviously puzzles in the game. Some of them are tied to the story and some of them aren't. Some of them you need to do to progress to a new area, and some of them are just things that citizens in the town gave you. Like I mentioned earlier, all of the puzzles in the game were either inspired by or created by Akira Tago. And these aren't just like Candy Crush puzzles. There's sliding puzzles that aren't really to match things, they're to get something from point A to point B, and there's blocks in the way. But there's also logic puzzles, there's math puzzles, there's drawing puzzles, there's matchstick ones, like in every single game where you have to like flip a match to like make something new. They always like stick out in my memory for some reason. And some of the puzzles from Curious Village especially still like catch me off guard when I replay it. Even as like a 20-year-old, I struggle a lot with some of them. Off the top of my head, the Wolves and Chick puzzle, the like final two sliding puzzles, like one I think is like the Princess's Escape or something, they're really hard. The sliding puzzles in this game especially, there's a lot of them for some reason, but they're hard. They're really, really difficult. And one of the great things about it is all of these games will be like, oh, you can complete this puzzle in like 11 moves. It's taking me like 80 for some of them. They're like really small numbers, and I'm like, I didn't think I was this stupid, but apparently I am. It's just these puzzles are really hard and they're meant to challenge you, and it's great. You get really, really frustrated, and then you have the final relief of getting it right, and you're provided with the next part of the story, and it's so, so nice, as long as they are actually to move to another part of the story. The fun thing about getting the puzzles from the characters is that if you miss them, they just go to Granny Riddleton and you can play them later at any point in the game. If you get stuck on one of those, it kind of sucks because they don't always benefit you, but sometimes you do get stuff out of them. Curious Village has a lot of mini games throughout it where you'll need to get certain things like furniture, charms, or robot dog parts, and you get these from the puzzles that the residents give you. It's not every single one will give you something, but most of the time you'll get one. So those are also little rewards that you get that make it, you know, not as stressful and upsetting to take super long on a puzzle. There's also several cutscenes in this game, and I actually think they're pretty necessary. The smaller ones, though they don't seem to provide a lot, are a great break from gameplay, and you know, when you've been doing puzzles for a long period of time, it's nice to kind of just like rest your eyes and watch something that you don't have to really put effort into. And then there are actually important cutscenes that provide longer parts of the story, like the setup at the beginning about the letter and taking Luke and Layton to St. Mystere, and then the final cutscene where you sort of figure everything out, and then there's this crazy attack from Don Paulo, and Layton and Flora have to escape, and it's like, will they or won't they? And it's really nerve-wracking. And when I was a kid, like, it genuinely scared me. Not because it's scary, but I was like so invested, and I was so worried for the outcome of the Professor and Flora that I just, you know, was scared. At the end of the day, what this game really just boils down to is a puzzle game with a lot of story. But I do think the meaning that it evokes is worth so much more than that. It's just so good. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's such a relief from, for me at least, all of the games that I play now. When I get really, really bored with just, you know, getting in a Valorant match and doing the same thing over and over again, I play this game. Or, you know, when I'm bored with any other game, even if it's a story one, I go back to the Professor Layton games. Because, not that other story games are bad, this one for me, it just scratches my brain the right way, and it engages me in ways some other games can't. Which, again, isn't a knock on those games, it's more of a personal thing with me, but I really think they're good, and I think if you want to try something new, that this is definitely a game that is worth it. If you're into mystery or cottagecore, or you really like Sherlock Holmes or stories like that, I think it's great. It's a great game. It's a great game for you. Even if you don't like stuff like that, I think you should at least give it a shot. Hopefully there will be more. This year is the 15th anniversary of Curious Village, so I'm hoping that level 5 is like, hey, we should make another game. Because I think that'd be really cool. I really like to play another Professor Layton game, and I think it'd be great to get modern audiences in on it, because I think they'd really like it. And if you're watching this video, I think you'd really like it too.